Delayed gratification, a real skills workshop. And I think that delayed gratification, when you really understand the energetics of it, contributes to a thriving life. And, this was scheduled for a month ago, and we delayed everyone's gratification of being here and being a part of the workshop. And so thank you for being here. Kathy Bartuli from the Intimacy Dojo and Thriving Now is my co-creator tonight. I'm Rick from Thriving Now.
Yeah. And I love this topic because I do think that this is one of the keys to having a successful and fulfilling life. And I don't think that it applies the way a lot of people think it does. So in one of the newsletters we send out, I talked about they did a study, a very long-term study. They took a bunch of kids and one by one into a room, and they were told that the researcher put down a marshmallow and said, you can have this marshmallow now, or if you can wait a couple minutes, you'll have two marshmallows. And then they left the room. And they studied which kids ate the marshmallows right away and which ones waited. And then they followed them through life. And they found the ones that didn't eat the marshmallow, the ones that could wait a little bit of time in order to get double the pleasure, were much more successful in their life. Now, the researchers took this to mean that if you had willpower and discipline, or you're willing to delay gratification, you are more successful in life. I actually think that inadvertently, they were studying who was traumatized. I think a lot of people, like if you have a lot of trauma, Rick and I were talking just before this call, if you had very untrustworthy adults around you, people made promises and didn't follow through, people took your things, you're not getting enough food, that marshmallow is barely going to hit the table before it's gone. Someone might lose a finger if they're not careful. Whereas someone who has plenty, they have abundance, they have a secure attachment and reliable resources, and people generally do what they say or come through and say, hey, I know we said we go to the circus, mommy's sick, we're going to do something, I'm really sorry, we're going to do something different. Those kids could probably go, oh, well, if I sit here and wait, there are going to be two marshmallows. So I don't know that they were actually studying what they thought they were studying, but it was a very comprehensive study done very well. But I think they were actually looking at trauma responses as well without understanding that. And what we want to do today is help you understand where you can start working. I think most people have some trauma. If you're drawn to Rick and I, you're not coasting through life and things aren't all hunky-dory all the time, and you want to make things really different. You're not just kind of existing and hoping that they'll get better. So there's a balance between healing old things and building up the muscles around delayed gratification and building for our future selves. And when we can find that balance somewhere, get it somewhere in the middle, we start thriving a lot more quickly.
If you're on the call live, thank you and welcome. And we appreciate your co-creation and your courage. I'd like to ask for Kathy and my input in the chat, if you're up for it. What reaction happens to you when you just hear delayed gratification? Like, what is that? What happens? What's your thought? What's your
what's in your body?
What's your reaction to it? Like,
so someone associates the term with kink. It can be sexy to have someone say, no, not yet, or it can be a form of dominance, someone telling someone else to wait. Denying pleasure, someone shared. I think that it's immediate pleasure, control, discipline. Heck no, I want it now. Dead feeling. That's life. It sucks. I'm asked to wait again. It makes me a little
asked panicky. To wait again. Yeah, a little panicky. Yeah. So thank you. That helps. It really, and the chat is open. You'll notice we try to remember not to reveal people's names, just to share someone in the chat as as part of our process. Um,
The gratification never comes.
yeah. So like I I would like to honor. We've talked about trauma. We've talked a little bit about the conditioning. Um, I I'm starting to tap because there was so much judgment about like, oh, he just he if he so in the stressful times of my life when I was a kid and I felt extremely unsafe going to my dad's place, I would buy with all of my allowance Reese cups when they used to taste good. Not like not like they make them now. um,
There's so
um,
much compassion for that little kid, though, trying to find a way to make it through this really
and
stressful situation.
and we would typically be heading like 8 kids in the back of a station wagon with a dad that was already through 6 beers, and we were driving down. My dad could really hold his alcohol, by the way. Like 6 beers, I'd be dead. And I've seen it. I saw him drive without hitting guardrails with 18 beers in an hour and a half trip. So, but still, there's an energy of somebody who's drinking and driving, not just the safety factor. And so, at the time, to give away my age, since I am going to be 60 in September, um, Reese's were like 5 cents, and then they doubled, like they become 10 cents. And my allowance was 50 cents. So I have like 10. And then I would usually like bring money with me that I had earned by doing stuff. So I might have bought like 10 or 12 packs. So that's a lot. Reese cup. And I just ate them all. Like in the hour drive, I might I might have like gotten so full of them that I might have like in the trash in the bag, I might have had one package left. But now that was not about enjoyment. That was like my impulse control to savor my Reese's. That was not available to me. And then in my 20s, when I was really stressed to the max, working 120-hour weeks, guess what I did? I bought Reese cups, and at that point I became aware like this is really pretty pathological. You know, I had read the study. I had heard about the studies about impulse control and things like that. And I had this little mantra and I made it kind of like, if he has them, he will eat them. If he has them, he will eat them. And, you know, it's honestly been in this couple weeks where we've been talking about this workshop that I realized with some tears and compassion that I just didn't have a choice. And so, like, if there's a part of your life, or maybe right now, where you look at it and go, wow, my impulse control really sucked. Maybe it was during COVID period. Maybe it was, the last 10 years. Maybe it was a segment of your life. Um, it can apply to a lot of things, not just candy or food. Um, we humans, we have a primate brain. We call it the primitive brain. And it needs something that you could call gratification, even if it feels pretty um, temporary, not very deep. It's like eating those Reese's, something would happen in my body that felt like okayness. It was a kind of nourishment. And that's one way. And if you have the skill of medicating yourself in that way, I believe that those of us that have done that are 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 really set up to appreciate that the energy that we got, even though it was very short lived and may have had some other things around it, that there's a thriving aspect of delayed gratification. And I'm even going to call it cued gratification. It's setting ourselves up so that what we do now allows us to appreciate and feel nourished an hour later, a day later, a week later, um, and that creates an energetic cycle that is deeper within us, and it starts building what Kathy, we're going to talk about credibility with yourself. It's different than trust. I think that's why I'm really delighted to see where Kathy goes with it. Credibility with yourself, like, oh, I do this, and then when I receive it an hour or a day or a week later, um, I pause and I let myself really feel my life has this virtuous cycle. A virtuous cycle is how we move energy in a way that builds what we want, builds the lifestyle of energy and emotions that we want. And I've been practicing this at the next level as a student before becoming a teacher again on it. And I will tell you, this morning, I knew that after watching the baby all day long, because um, there was an appointment for my boy and Jem this morning, and then Jem had a client. After watching her all day long, if I had to figure out what I was going to have for dinner, I like, oh, so I did grocery shopping even though I didn't want to, um, on the app. Thank you, home delivery. Um, and when it came time to cook dinner, and I knew exactly what was there, I had choice. I could feel into what was right. I could ask my partner what was right for her, and I had choice. And I just paused. I was like, "Thank you, buddy." Now this may seem absurd, and not. It's it's a way, like, to me, it made it a lot easier for me to do the shopping without feeling like I had to, without that energy of, oh, we got nothing to eat, I better shop. No, it was like, hey, we got we got enough for right now, but I'm going to take care of myself. That's coming up this evening. And and for those of you that are energetically sensitive, you may even feel like there's a real sense of gratitude that I feel for myself having done that. And that nourished me enough to be able to be here also. Go ahead, Kathy. Thank you.
Well, I think that when we've had a lot of trauma or we feel very depleted, our world gets we start getting more narrow focus. We don't see the future. And I know during COVID, there were times because everyone was talking about, like, especially when I first started, no one knew how badly things were going to fall apart. And so there wasn't necessarily a future. Like, we might be all dying for all we knew at that point. So it was very hard for me to do things for my future self. I didn't feel secure in the world. I felt very scared. I felt depleted and deprived. Like, I wasn't getting enough dopamine anyway because all my friends were pulled away. Like, my security, the things I was looking forward to, and for many of us,
Want to
that's
do
the
some
case.
tapping on this?
Yeah, karate chop.
Um,
Even though there may not be anything to look forward to right now,
Even though a part of me may not think there's anything to look forward to right now,
there may actually be some future.
there may actually be some future.
Even though I feel so depleted,
Even though I feel so depleted,
emotionally or physically or both,
emotionally, physically, or both,
I'm not sure if I'll make it to tomorrow.
part of me is not sure I'll make it till tomorrow.
I don't know that I have anything to invest in the future.
I don't know that I have anything to invest in the future.
And part of me still wants to hope.
And part of me still wants to hope.
Top of the head, things seem really dark sometimes.
Things seem really dark sometimes.
Eyebrow, it's really hard to save for a future that may not come.
It's really hard to save for a future that may not come.
Side of the eye, to put energy into something that may never happen.
Put energy into something that may never happen.
Under the eye, and yet the earth still keeps turning.
And yet the earth still keeps turning.
Under the nose, and I've gotten through some pretty rough times in the past.
And I've gotten through some pretty rough places in the past.
Chin, what if I could start building a muscle for investing in myself?
What if I could start building a muscle about investing in myself, my future self?
Collarbone, I only have to take very small steps.
And the good news is I only have to take very, very small steps.
Under the arm, just taking those steps may give me more hope for the future.
Taking those steps may give me more hope for the future.
Top of that, and I'm curious about developing the relationship with my future self.
And I'm curious about developing a relationship with my future self.
So just take a breath. There's an investment in energy whenever we make any change. So Newton's law of inertia, like things that an object in motion will continue in that same motion until something acts on it. So if we're sitting on the couch watching Netflix and we have, enough, maybe we have our food, some munchies or whatever there's not much, like we're in inertia. There's like, oh, I'm entertained. I have enough food. Why would I want to change anything? Why would I want to interrupting that experience, that flow, takes energy. And unless we have a really good reason to do it, it can easily, and that I've been there, like, especially during COVID, where 12 hours passed and I was like, I think I should probably go pee. Like, I haven't even got off the couch. It's probably time. But changing what we're doing can feel like a lot of effort, especially if we're really low on whatever we're getting for whatever we're doing. So watching TV, watching Netflix, or streaming videos, or flipping through the cats on Facebook. They've set up our media system so that we're getting little dopamine rushes. We're hunting for something cool, finding it, and getting a little dopamine rush. It's very intentional. And it works. Our brain goes, oh, I won. And I didn't have to put a lot of effort. I wasn't like walking through the neighborhood looking for something cool. I'm laying on the couch eating potato chips. So our survival brain is going, we're winning. We're not expending a lot of energy. We're hunting and gathering. We're getting this dopamine rush. And dopamine is, I've been listening to a lot of Tom Belu, who is an influencer on YouTube. And he's the one who actually used the credibility with yourself. I kind of take that to mean more of a secure attachment with yourself, where we show up for ourselves in a reasonable way. We do what we say. We're consistent with ourselves. We tell ourselves, I'm going to give you this if you do this. And then we actually do it. And like, we'll be appreciative later, like Rick was talking about. So really using some of the secure attachment things we would do with a child or a pet that we wanted to bond with ourselves. And also understanding that we're fighting a survival brain that is often overwhelmed and is tricked by things that give it what resembles to it as a winning situation. So we were born to hunt and gather. Like we were born to like hunt for cool things and bring them back to the cave and share them with the rest of our circle. And if we don't, if we feel like we're getting that, but we're not getting the movement, we're not getting the social interactions, we're kind of tricked with fake sugar, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we're getting the dopamine rush, and it's hard to interrupt that.
I'd like to just take two tapping rounds on that, if we could.
Yeah.
You talked about it being big, sometimes a hard deal, right?
Yeah.
Even though delayed gratification feels really hard.
Even though delayed gratification feels really hard.
And sometimes it has felt impossible.
And sometimes it's felt impossible.
I accept where I've been.
I accept where I've been.
And I acknowledge sometimes it's hard.
I acknowledge sometimes it's hard.
Even though delayed gratification feels really big.
Even though delayed gratification feels really big.
The good news is I can take really small steps.
The good news is I can take really small steps.
Top of the head. This doesn't have to be a big deal.
This doesn't have to be a big deal.
Eyebrow. This can be one thing a day.
This can be one thing a day.
Under the eye, one tiny thing.
One tiny thing.
Under the eye, it doesn't even have to be a big deal.
It doesn't even have to be a big deal.
No, it doesn't have to be life changing.
It doesn't have to be life changing.
And it's an attitude adjustment.
It's an attitude adjustment.
I'm changing my frame of reference.
I'm changing my frame of reference.
I haven't really thought about my future self.
I haven't really thought about my future self.
Not the way we're exploring it right now.
Not the way we're exploring it right now.
What if I've really been pretty courageous for my future self?
I've actually been pretty courageous for my.
Because if I wasn't, I probably wouldn't be here right now.
Because if I wasn't, I probably wouldn't be here right now.
There's a lot that's gone into me being here right now.
There is a lot that's gone into me being here.
And some of it's been really hard.
And some of it's been really hard. I think that if we can just take a minute, and if you'd like to put your hand on your heart like Rick is, just think of your past self. So I've been talking about our future self, but think about, like Rick was talking about himself as a little kid, trying to find a solution, limited resources. Mom and dad are overwhelmed, not really able to, can't really talk to them about what's going on, or they can't change it, what's happening. Figuring it out. Each of you went through probably something that was pretty challenging. And if you can, just send some gratitude back to that younger self that maybe they didn't figure out the perfect solution. You wish they'd learned how to fly or, psychoanalyze their parents or whatever, but they figured out a solution that got you to here. Maybe it was eating a lot of Reese's peanut butter cups, or maybe it was, whatever we do. We have all kinds of patterns we follow, avoiding certain things, but that little being got you here. And gratitude is one of the biggest dissolvers of trauma. If you can send back, like, hey, sweetheart, I remember that time that you got up and you didn't think you'd get out of bed. It was really tough. And you remembered there was Cocoa Puffs in the kitchen. That's one of mine that got me out of bed that morning. I could go eat Cocoa Puffs and watch a little bit of cartoons before my mom and dad got up and got into things. That was huge. Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you for finding some reason for keeping going and bringing you to the here and now.
So here's an interesting thought. We did some tapping on it being hard, the challenges of it right now. And all I did was open up a door, and maybe you went through it, maybe you didn't. And Kathy just opened up another door, the same door, that there's a lot of you from the past that gave you enough awareness and adaptability and resilience to be able to do this type of exploration. This is not kindergarten, okay? And I believe that part of delayed gratification is there are a lot of things that exist in your life journey that you could pause and be grateful. And I've been a colleague of Carol Luck for a long time. I will tell you that, what am I grateful for right now? That is really hard for me. That's really hard for me. Now, what's easier is, what did past Rick do an hour ago, earlier today, yesterday, last week, a year ago, 10 years ago, when he was a kid, that I'm actually harvesting the benefit of his persistence, his not giving up, his capacity to survive, his dream of actually being able to control his emotions or whatever it is. Like I can feel the me that was looking for EFT tapping, and I get this nice little spiritual wave of gratitude. And so, like, delayed gratitude can be an opportunity to connect to the you that was doing their shit and struggling or exploring or not giving up, and feeling how that got you here.
Yeah.
Even like someone said, my rage got me here. Yeah, the you that had rage, that that energy, that fire was
Give up.
used. Um, so there's that. Now, in the idea of small step, because sometimes when we haven't healed enough in the sense of like, oh, if I touch myself in the back of that car, a lot's going to come up for me. That would have been true for a lot of my life. I really wasn't connected to little Ricky and what he was capable of doing and how he managed things. Um, there can be a you from an hour ago. Like I looked at the kitchen and I mentioned dishes, future self. So I'm going to use this example. I really wanted to take a shower. I hadn't taken a shower. Um, and it was time and I wanted to take a nap before the call. And so, but as I was walking out, I looked over at the kitchen and I knew baby girl was going up to bed. And I thought, there's a me that's after this workshop that's going to want to just kind of come down and just savor and be connected to everything and everyone that was here. And I thought, if I spend 10 minutes now, I'm giving a gift. And as part of this practice, I'm aware that there's a queued up moment of gratitude when I walk down and I see the kitchen after the workshop, or even in between when we take our 7-minute break. Um, there's a moment where if I pause and I'm like, that was kind, that was generous, that was an act of service, that's an act of love that I gave to myself. That Thank you for talking about secure attachment, because it's not just that I come through for myself, but it makes it more conscious what we're doing. When we do laundry, the future self that goes to the underwear drawer and there's 3 pairs of underwear instead of that one ratty pair that means you will do laundry today or else you're going commando tomorrow. You know, like it's a shift in energy and it cues up energy for you, and it starts tapping into resourcefulness and skill that you've already built. And I obviously I'm excited about it. I want to maintain this as a practice.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what's coming up for people if you'd like to share in the chat. We've touched on
While we're waiting for other people, someone shared that the uncertainty of outcomes might have been what drove you to the couch to the first place. And a lot of trauma is uncertainty that we don't know we can handle. So uncertainty that we know we can handle, that can be excitement. Like, oh, dad's throwing me up in the air and catching me. I'm certain he's going to catch me, but there's still that kind of thrill, excitement. I'm not sure if he's going to remember or if he's going to miss. That's trauma. I don't know if I'll survive that. So there is a lot of uncertainty in the lives, built into the lives of many people with trauma. Insecurely attached people feel they've experienced a lot of uncertainty usually, because if there was certainty, generally certainty of bad things is not good either. But if there was certain love and support, nobody's perfect, but there wouldn't be so much trauma. Yeah. And when we're not sure if that future is going to be there, or if we're investing money and we don't know if the banks will be there or the monetary system will collapse, it's really hard to take these actions. And I think it's important to address. You want to do some tapping on that, or?
I could feel the flood of global being an empath. Here, let me stick my heart into the river of uncertainty that exists all over the planet.
Well, there is, but we can start.
That's where, for me, part of the small practices that we're talking about are, I am certain that I've done the dishes and I did it as a something that's queued up for me to be grateful for later. Now, if I'm too tired and I don't really notice it or something like that, maybe I'll notice it tomorrow or I'll think about it tomorrow morning or something. There's not an obligation to feel grateful. Tap, tap, tap. It's an opportunity for us to nourish. See, you know, I've got a 2-year-old. Like, I know the energetics of like what she wants to cultivate a healthy bond with an adult is that kind of presence and forethought and the like. And one of those is, anticipating needs. Well, when I'm feeling securely attached to myself, what am I doing? I'm anticipating my own needs, even my needs 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road. Like that to me is, but it's an energetic that this kind of simple practice, if it requires a big, huge change, um, that's not easy for me. All the things that we teach as real skills have as their essence something that may be hard, but it's good and it's doable. It's not something that demands that you fundamentally change everything that you do in
But I
order to
think
love
one of the
yourself
if
when
we
you
want to have, we can't have certainty in other people necessarily or in the world, but we can
correct.
have the certainty with our own secure attachment with ourselves, our showing up for ourselves. That can create some certainty and some security as we go forward. I choose to show up for myself today. I'm going to build that credibility with myself. Where, yeah, there might be times when I'm really just too tired to do something that I committed to, but in general, I'm going to show up and do it. I'm going to be there for myself. And one of the things I've noticed is just taking these small, and we'll give some examples in a little bit, but as we learn how to do these little delayed gratifications, these little bit of excursions where we actually building muscle,
Yeah.
um, so that we feel stronger about taking care of ourselves. That increases the security in the sense of, hey, I'm doing a good job for me. And there's a bigger and better dopamine rush for me than watching Netflix all day when I do some of those things.
Mhm. I would like to just do a round of um, I, the word deprivation keeps coming up and it's just in the field. So I'd like to do one.
Yeah.
So if you imagine something that, you know, you you feel like it it would be deprivation if you delayed doing this in order to do this for your future self, um, it would feel like deprivation. Or to take like, and especially things that are like um, the things that have longer term benefit. For example, if 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 I'm tired, there's a part of me that just wants to nap. I would delay the if I delay the gratification of napping in order to go for a walk, there's a part of me that I've had to quiet that feels deprived of the freedom to just nap when I want, or, to get my need met. I need to nap, you know. It's not necessarily true. And I'm not forcing myself to go for the walk. But the deprivation that feeling like, oh, I would be depriving myself can skew our choice toward the primitive, the 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 rest, the food, the the pleasures of that have impact if overdone. Um, you know, 24 Reese's in an hour is a pleasure that can be overdone. Like 18 beers, I inherited it. Uh, so that's my thought. If you have something that like, I hate depriving myself, even though I hate depriving myself,
Even though I hate depriving myself.
and a part of me refuses to deprive myself.
And a part of me refuses to deprive myself.
What if delayed gratification is not about deprivation?
What if delayed gratification is not about deprivation?
I would have it's always felt like deprivation.
It's always felt like deprivation.
I brought delayed gratification.
Delayed
I
gratification.
mean, why would I do that?
Why would I do that?
Yeah, part of me thinks that's stupid.
Part of me thinks that's stupid.
And those, why would I delay gratification
Why would I delay
when
gratification
I can have it now?
when I can have it now?
But that sort of forces my choice.
That kind of forced my choice.
If I feel I'd be deprived if I didn't have it now.
If I felt like I'd be deprived if I didn't have it now,
Yeah, that's not freedom.
that's not freedom.
I may want it now.
I may want it now.
I may have it now.
I may have it now.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with having it now.
There's nothing wrong with having it now.
I just don't want deprivation to force me to have it now.
I just don't want deprivation to force me to have it now.
Or to feel guilty for having it now.
Or to feel guilty for having it now.
Or ashamed for having it now.
Or ashamed for having it now.
I want to have a fuller range of choice.
I want to have a fuller range of choice.
And maybe gratification can be queued up for my future self.
And maybe gratification can be queued up for my future self. When you were
go ahead.
Yeah, just when you were leading through that, I just had this vision of like most of us learned about our first experiences with delayed gratification were probably a frustrated, depleted parent demanding we take the trash out right now, demanding we clean up our crayons right now, demanding it didn't come from internal.
No.
It was externally imposed with an energy of you have to do this now. And like there's guilt and like not choice in there.
You can't have dessert until you do your chores.
Yeah. Even though I learned about delayed gratification from my parents.
Even though I learned about delayed gratification from my parents and teachers.
And they were often really frustrated when they talked about it with me.
And they were often very frustrated because I wanted it now.
They wanted me to do what they wanted to do right then.
Yeah, they demanded that I do what they needed me to do right then.
It wasn't in my flow.
Pop up that fur ball.
It wasn't in my flow or in my choice.
It wasn't in my flow, and there wasn't really a choice.
Top of the head, I allow myself to step in my own power now.
Allow myself to step into my own power now.
Eyebrow, if I choose to delay gratification, it's coming from within.
If I choose to delay gratification, it's coming from within. That's where I want it to be.
Yeah. I can adjust it around my flow.
I can adjust it around my flow.
Under the eye and to my energy levels.
And to my energy levels.
Under the nose, I don't have to let other people decide this for me.
I don't have to let other people decide this for me.
Chin, I get to choose what's important.
I get to choose what's important.
Collarbone, maybe I can release some of that old energy around delayed gratification.
Maybe I can release some of this old energy around delayed gratification.
Under the arm, and internalize my own power a lot more.
Internalize my own power a lot more.
Just take a nice deep breath. And realize delayed gratification isn't, when we're talking about, it doesn't mean that it has to be unpleasurable. We're not asking you to hit your thumb with a hammer. You know, like we're going to turn off Netflix and go hit your thumb with a hammer. That's not what we're saying at all. We're saying interrupt one flow, one pattern that you're in, at least for a few minutes. And then I was working with a client the other day, and this is actually where the thought for this topic came up, was she was having a hard time with the Netflix thing, getting caught on the couch, and she really needed to do laundry. And we're talking about a secure attachment with herself. And she's like, she was little, her mom promised her stuff all the time and never came through for her. So like whatever she was promised, she didn't get. So she doesn't want to turn off Netflix to go do the laundry because then she'll pull herself off into something else. And I was talking about secure attachment with her, and I said, would you do that for one of your nieces or nephews? She's like, no, that's really mean. I said, well, why are you doing that to you? So what if you could, like, when we're dealing with secure attachment, like, and especially when we're initially doing this, very small steps make it so much easier. So I said, what's the how much time do you need to go and get the clothes out of your bedroom in a laundry basket? She said, probably 60 seconds. I said, so what if you told yourself, I'm going to, at the next, the next pause place where commercial would normally come in or whatever, there's a place where you can easily push the button, pause it, don't even turn it off, and go and get all the clothes in a basket in the living room. Can you do that? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, then sit down and watch some more Netflix. Tell yourself, I'm going to let you do this. We're just interrupting it. You're teaching your system that feels uncertain that it will get it back. Here we are. We're going to take you right back to this thing you were enjoying. And this may not be the right layout for everything, but this worked really well for her. And I said, how much time would you have to watch before you could do another 60-second thing? She said, 20 minutes. I said, well, let's make it 30 just to really anchor that. Set a timer for 30 minutes and then plus or minus a minute or two, pause. And what's the next task? And she's like, take the laundry to the laundry room. I'm like, okay, can you do that? And she did that. And so like she just broke it down. And by the end of the day, it did take her a number of hours to get the laundry done, but it was at least done. And she had clean clothes for the next day. And she ended up feeling so good because she was taking those little steps that she folded a lot of the clothes while she was watching Netflix later that night. She felt, oh, I'm not going to be deprived of the thing that I was enjoying isn't going to be taken away completely. I'm not trying to torture myself. And I think a lot of times when we're trying to work on willpower, if we can interrupt whatever's happening in the background, we don't let ourselves go back because we're afraid we'll get sucked back in.
Mm.
And we just make ourselves work and work and work. So it's like, why would you're telling me I'm just going to put the laundry in, but I know you're going to make me scrub the bathroom and take out the trash and cook tomorrow's dinner. And I'm exhausted by the end of the day. So if we can building trust with ourselves is not just about like, it's doing what we say. It's not just about gratitude. It's like, oh, can we have a minute? Oh, honey, I'm sorry that took a minute and a half. I acknowledge that I misestimated the time, but we're okay. We're going to watch a little extra right now to make up for it. So we're actually building trust and we're building the muscle of like, oh, let's do a little bit. Let's see that we can do a little bit and not feel depleted and deprived. It actually felt good to stretch my legs. I'm actually enjoying the show more, knowing that I'm not sitting there worrying about not having clothes tomorrow. So those little steps, it's building the muscle and the trust that's really powerful.
Mm. It's tender realizing how often, you might hear, I just sit and watch Netflix all day and I can't do my laundry. And someone might react with a judgment that says, you're weak. You just need to do it. And that's not trauma informed. And I appreciate that one of the core values of thriving now is that we are trauma informed. Not only have we been traumatized, but everyone we love has gone through something, the
It's been a
absence
lot of
or the excess of something. And, secure attachment is a powerful aspect, the energy aspect of secure attachment. I think the words, again, the kinesthetic feeling of, okay, I'm building credibility with myself. I'm coming up with a system that can work for me. I do the 1 minute, I come back. I do a minute, I come back. I'm not using willpower, I'm using choice. It's coming from an inner source that both this engagement with Netflix or whatever's on there it matters to me. It's nourishing me in some way. It may be helping me cope with energies that I don't know what else to do with, but it helps me. And I value having some laundry to wear. I believe that at some point in the following 24 hours, there's an opportunity to pause and go like, wow, I got the laundry done for me. Now, like it's fresh, it's clean, and I'm appreciating the current, like for those of us that aren't looking at it just as a task that was done, but we're aware of the emotional labor and the healing and the level of like wow that goes into just that, like a minute getting the laundry, um, you know, 15 seconds taking some something that doesn't belong there and putting it where it feels right, whether it's the trash or in its place. Like for some people, that's a huge, like there's a lot of, ah, but by doing these small things and completing the circuit so that not in a big way, it's more like it doesn't have to be a big way. It can be like, yeah, thank you. Thank you, dear heart. Thank you for getting the laundry done. It feels really good to have these clean clothes. I know it was,
You're talking
I
about,
know it was hard.
yeah. But I'm like you talking about picking up little things since I've been building more trust with myself. It used to be if there was resistance to putting one thing away because if I put one thing away, then I'm like, oh, I'm on a roll. I should just clean all day. Like it wasn't just one thing, and I didn't have any trust. I had no credibility, so I would just leave that one thing. I would never do it, and it would be kind of annoying and distant in my house. And since I've been building more trust, I notice I just quickly put things away, and it just my house is much neater, and I feel better about myself. I'm not constantly looking at things and trying to avoid them. It takes energy to kind of avoid and not deal with things.
Ah. So we like to take a 7 minute break. This feels to me like this is a good moment to do that. Um, and so during that time, if there's anything you'd like to share in the chat, if there's needs that you have or desires, uh, maybe your future self would appreciate having an empty bladder 3 minutes from now rather than having to have some pressure, more pressure than is comfortable. Yeah, go pee. And yeah, so whatever is right for you. Um, and if you're listening to the recording, we invite you to do the same. Take a short break here, and we'll be back at 25 past. So, all right, welcome back.
Yeah, just as we're coming back, um, please, I was talking earlier about moment, like inertia. We're kind of in an inertial phase, and changing that can take energy. I'd like to invite you to try a little exercise. This is really, it's actually lovely, but for many people, it's like, no, we're supposed to get into we have like a direction we're going, and we're kind of like going that way. So I want to interrupt that just a moment to invite you. What could you do to let yourself be 5% more comfortable right now? Could you shift how you're sitting? Could you take a sip of water? Someone shared about like they get in a flow and they don't want to stop to run to the restroom. Hopefully you took that time to do that. But could you stop the inertia just long enough to consider what would make me 5% more comfortable right now? Is Rick stretching his neck? I got a blanket for my legs because it's a little chilly in here. Just noticing that that's a little pause, and it does take energy to do that. Just going along in the same pattern we expect doesn't take the same kind of psychic energy as pausing and noticing. And we can get back in the flow. So we're going to get back in the flow of the talk. And I want to point out that we just did kind of I don't know if you want to call, I have to talk about building the muscles for things. We just did we did a pull up or something where we stop the flow gently for just 10, 20 seconds, and then we got back in. So that's almost like we just lifted one bar, one bicep curl or whatever it is, to let ourselves step out and step back in. And we're building trust with ourselves in the sense that, oh, we had an intention, we're going somewhere. We say we're just gonna pause for a moment. We're gonna check in with ourselves, maybe adjust a couple of things, and then we're gonna step back in. So the more we can allow ourselves to do those little, in dressage, they call them half halts, where you kind of you kind of like stop the momentum forward, kind of gather the horse, gather yourself together a little bit and check in with yourself. those are also, that's a delayed gratification. You came back thinking we're going to dive in and start doing some tapping. And instead we just interrupted that just for a moment and we went back to it. So, um, that's a way, like little things like that you can do. I know I've sat at a desk for an hour with all my leg feeling uncomfortable and like, oh, I don't want to stop I'm in the mood to get something done. When if I just taken a moment to stop and adjust my body, I would have felt much more cared for and probably would have had more energy at the end. So hopefully
And
that
part
will.
of the virtuous cycle again is so now I'm I'm 5, maybe even 10% more comfortable having done that. So a 2-second, like, yeah, I did that. I'm grateful I did that because I'm more comfortable. Um, give yourself just a little bit of gratitude for having done that exercise if you did it. If you didn't do it, it's like, oh, well, I didn't. And, I went on with my freedom. It's the virtuous cycle of changing your momentum, um, and doing something else for a really short period of time, and then receiving that energy of gratitude, of the gift and the gratitude for the gift. It's an act of service. It's a love language to do anything for yourself in the future. Um, uh, you do it in the now, and the benefits accrue to you. If it's something that is for your benefit, there are things that accrue to you. And becoming aware of that, I think, is part of the thriving lifestyle. This is a real skills workshop. I haven't met anyone that is just naturally grateful from the time that they're, you know, a year old. Some people find it easier. My trauma history makes it like, I need to have enough muscle to use awareness, and to as you build strength. It's nice, isn't it, when if you can't lift up a trash can and you have to empty it in 3 trips, but you build a muscle to be able to empty it in 1 trip, and then you build up the energy to be able to carry a bag of you know mulch or something like that. Well, over the time that you were building muscle, you start noticing. And energy work is like that too. You may find like, oh, I didn't feel a whole lot. But by pausing, even for a few seconds, like, okay, I could feel grateful to my past self for having done that.
I
Yeah.
think
Okay. Go
when
ahead.
we're not as good at it, when we were first starting building this, again, think of a small child. We do something that's in short in duration and it's not delayed too far into the future. So when we're first starting this, a lot of small things that are not that hard. And if we can anticipate something that you might really appreciate in the future, that can help the gratitude cycle, the loop come back. But again, like this was the exercise I had with what would make you 5% more comfortable. That's a 10 to 20-second exercise that you immediately feel the results for versus putting money aside for when I retire, which I'd love to do. It's one of my big things. I'm saving for future Kathy to have steak with Rick on the beach somewhere or lobster or whatever it is. Um, that's much further out, and it's a bigger thing. Now each month it automatically comes out of my paycheck, so like I've built up the muscle for that, so it happens automatically. I built up the habit for that, but that wouldn't, that you can definitely start with some of that, but just even starting with small things that you could do right now, like what can I do to feel better right now? What could I do that would help me feel better a little bit later? If there's not a lot of trust with yourself, there's a lot of uncertainty or a lot of trauma, or your muscles feel weak around this, even something that you'll notice tomorrow might seem too far away. What are little things I can do right now? What could I do now that will help me feel better 10 minutes or an hour from now? And one of the things I can do is bring that back. I have sat on that couch and worried about doing the laundry all day, and it really sucked the joy out. I spent far more psychic energy worrying about not having laundry than actually doing the work. So actually just getting it started, there's a reward right there. Like, oh, phew, I'm not sitting here spinning my wheels about it. So if we can notice the results sooner, start with small things with a quick return on the investment. That can help us build the muscles because we're getting that feedback much quicker. We don't want to start like if you haven't walked in for a long time, walking around the block might seem huge, or running a marathon would be impossible. But a lot of us start there because we're taught about willpower and adrenaline versus self-actualization and building up internal resources. So we had someone that would like to work with us. Oh, you're muted. How do you get muted?
No, I coughed,
Oh,
so I muted. Do you see?
yeah. Um,
Because I'm not seeing any hands raised.
oh, she raised her hand before, and I messaged her to make sure. Yeah. So should I have her mute, or do you want to?
Yeah, if you'd like to work with her, that'd be great.
Yeah. All right. Do you see the? There you are. Okay, good. Okay.
Hi, Rick.
Hi, how are you, Chris?
Good. Thank you. This is really resonating very well. So I've had some trauma lately, and because of particular illness, I'm actually separated from my child right now.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So I'm going through a lot, and the whole notion of having secure attachment for ourselves, caring for ourselves, and like just even hope for the future is challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you just maybe put your hand on your heart if that feels comforting to you, and just take a gentle breath, and just noticing that this is all really challenging right now. Where do you feel that in your body?
I feel it in my heart and in my gut.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the feeling you're noticing? Is it heaviness, or what
It's heaviness. It's almost like a pain.
yeah. Okay. So is it okay if we just start doing a little tapping?
Yes.
Karate chop, even though this heaviness is so intense.
Even though this heaviness is so intense,
My heart and my gut hurt.
my heart and my gut hurt.
This is so much right now.
This is so much right now.
How can I worry about secure attachment to myself right now?
How can I worry about secure attachment to myself right now?
This is so much.
This is so much.
And I can start taking baby steps
And I can start taking baby steps
while I'm being really gentle with myself.
while being very gentle with myself.
Top of the head, this is a really tough time.
This is a really tough time.
Eyebrow, I am hurting so bad.
I am hurting so bad.
Side of the eye, I don't have to push myself hard.
I don't have to push myself hard.
Under the eye, but little steps of taking care of myself.
But little steps of taking care of myself,
Under the nose, building those muscles.
building those muscles,
Chin, that will be really good for me.
that would be really good for me.
Collarbone, it will help me be a better role model when I'm with my kid again.
And it will help me be a better role model when I'm with my kid again.
Under the arm, it takes so much courage to move ahead with this much pain.
It takes so much courage to move ahead with this much pain.
Top of the head, part of what I can do is do some grieving.
Part of what I can do is do some grieving.
Eyebrow, it really is a tough time right now.
It really is a tough time right now.
Side of the eye, part of self-care is giving myself time to feel my feelings.
Part of self-care is giving myself time to feel my feelings.
Under the eye, I'm feeling them anyway.
I'm feeling them anyway.
Under the nose, what if I just did a little tapping?
What if I just did a little tapping
Shannon built the muscle of releasing this pain.
and built the muscle of releasing this pain?
Collarbone, that's a pretty secure attachment kind of thing to do.
That's a pretty secure attachment kind of thing to do.
Under the arm, I don't have to do it all at once.
I don't have to do it all at once,
Top of the head, but some baby steps forward might feel really good.
but some baby steps forward might feel really good.
Just take a gentle breath and notice what's coming up for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I really appreciate the vulnerability you brought forward. And when we're deep in trauma, when this is trauma, it sounds very traumatic anyway. I don't want to put my experience on you or my words on you, but um, when we have so much coming up, it's okay to kind of pull back and go, okay, what really needs to get done right now? So the house doesn't have to be perfect. That when I was going through a lot of my processing, I had a therapist who's like, the dishes don't care if you wash them. I'm like, really? They're like, oh, that's such a nice thing. Like, what's really important right now, I think, is for you to do whatever processing and healing you can. And also some self-care things, like if you need to take out the trash or little things you can do. But if you can do it from a point of view of, I'm doing this as self-care, I'm doing this in a loving act rather than I sometimes would, when I was really depleted, I'd be like, I got to take out the trash. I'm such a messy person. It wasn't very loving at all. It did not help me heal. It kind of put me back versus, wow, I'm really tired and I'm really overwhelmed and my heart hurts so much that I don't know if I can do it, but I'm going to go take the trash out right now because that's a loving act. I'm going to leave the house a little cleaner for myself. So that's the one, if I only have the energy to do one thing, what's the most important thing to do? And if you can do it in a loving way for yourself to kind of help yourself feel supported, I think that might be a really beautiful way to move forward.
Thank you very much. Very helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Rick, too.
Thank you, Chris.
Courage. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to just emphasize for all of this, a lot of people, if you listen to people on YouTube, I love to listen to some people out there, they're like, rah, rah, all I ever do is work. And I'm like, no, not what we're talking at all about. Please tune it to where you are. I hurt my knee the other day because I was like, oh, I'm doing so good. I'm going to go for a much longer walk than I've been doing. And now I can't go for walks for a little while because my knee is out. And I didn't listen to myself. I got kind of excited. It's kind of like, oh, I can push through. I really encourage you, if you can, be as practice, kind of like a meditative thing where I keep coming back to yourself. How does my body feel with this right now? Can I do this right now? And sometimes things like trash, it's kind of hard to do halfway. Like you have to kind of get it out there once you take it out of the bin. But a lot of things, like if you wash half the dishes, that's half the dishes. Like it's okay to like really tune into where you are if you can. Do it with yourself now. That again, we talk about secure attachment. It might be fun to do a call on that, just a secure attachment with ourselves, but doing it with what Rick wants, a secure attachment with his daughter. He's so amazing with her. They do a lot of things together. If you can do things with yourself, mindfully with yourself, rather than dictating and telling yourself what to do, you're going to have a much cleaner relationship with yourself. And you're going to feel more nourished by the things you do rather than depleted and told what to do. So, yeah, thank you again for sharing that, Chris.
Mm-hmm. So there are two aspects that come up in the time that we have for me. One is in the chat talks about how, I don't seem to actually feel the reward or gratification. And it may be useful. Like I used to view, there's a whole thing around parenting about being punished by rewards, and rewards are something that, for me, if I'm waiting for the reward, there was kind of a like, aren't I a good boy? Yes, you're a good boy today. Here's your reward, and that kind of lands in my energy field someplace that doesn't feel secure. It doesn't feel
To earn
like
it every time.
I'm always having to earn it. And the energetics of this, I invite you, if gratitude is weird for you, imagine that you happen to be at Kathy's house and you look and you see the trash needs to go out and you've got the energy to do it. You don't love doing the trash, like it's emptying the trash. But you say, "Hey, I'm going to empty the trash." And
One of my least favorite jobs. Yes.
Kathy comes in and all she does is nod and look at you. And you can just tell she's grateful for what you just did. She didn't go on, but there's something that happens when we do something like that. One, if I'm the one who emptied the trash, I just got feedback that what I did was useful and recognized, not because I need, like the trash needed to be emptied. I'm okay just taking care of stuff. Like I'm a big boy and I can do those types of things. But in the relationship between me and Kathy, if I do something and downstream at any point, she nods her head and it's like, yeah, thank you for doing the trash. Like there's an energetic completeness to that for me. Now, maybe not everyone's energy. There were times when I needed reassurance. Like I said, if you're trying to do it to be a good boy, good girl, good person, that's different. Like if I do the dishes because my mom told me that you always do the dishes before going to bed, that is utterly different. And the reward I would get for having gotten them done on that basis is not thriving. That's avoiding shame. Okay? I know how to dance around with that one. The thing of I do this and downstream, I nod and acknowledge myself for having done it and that it was useful. And I recognize that it took energy, maybe a little interruption in the flow of other stuff. And to me, that type of interaction doesn't land in the reward center. I believe that our reward centers have been really overstimulated. The receptors, if you do social media or Netflix or whatever, like that part of me needs something really big in order for it to land in that reward center these days, because it's kind of like numbed to the stimulation. It still needs it. But the gratitude is like the acknowledgement that you would give to somebody who saw that it would be kind, useful, generous, keep you from like collapsing in exhaustion, to do something or to be something. And you complete the loop and it starts becoming more natural. It starts becoming something where the energy of it becomes automatic. Like I do these things and I'm aware of my future self. There's just an awareness and it makes it easier. Things start to feel easier because there's this energetic nourishment that you're giving within yourself.
There's a satisfaction.
Is the capacity to be able to nourish, cleanse, regulate, reassure, appreciate, excite, entice, and influence yourself. And then the connections that we have with others really benefit like another layer of that. So if I'm doing this inside of myself, then I also am naturally going to notice what Kathy does, you know. Like she's already bought me the night before birthday dinner. Like she already made it. It's already there. It's like, and it feels so good to me, my future self, my now self, but also my future self, to be aware that that's a queued up moment where it's like, I'll share with the family. Kathy made this possible.
I wish I could be there. one of the things that I do is a contrast principle, and I don't know for those of you that have trouble noticing that, what I'll do is say if I take out the trash and people here, you're not attracted to Rick and I unless you're energetically sensitive. So a house where the trash is taken out to me feels fundamentally different than one that's waiting to have the trash taken out. So I'll kind of feel like, oh, this is what it feels like now, and this is what it would have felt like if I hadn't done that. So I kind of contrast that, and that kind of helps me. It's an immediate response that I can give myself. Again, especially when we're first building this up, the more immediate the response, the better our system. Our primitive brains have the intelligence of a small dog. We can train them like small dogs, little like, hey, appreciation is good dog, whatever. But we don't want to be just doing it for the hey, good dog. The sense of satisfaction in my body, the fact that my house feels much better when to me, it feels really good when the trash is taken out. So if you can maybe contrast that, oh, this is what it felt like with dirty laundry waiting to go. This is what it feels like with the laundry running. Oh, that's nicer. Different ways you might be able to feel into it. And please realize too that if you've been in a place where there's a lot of chaos, trauma, overwhelm, it may take a little practice to get there. You may have to do it a little bit to get may have to prime the pump a little bit, so to speak. For some people, our dopamine centers are really overwhelmed when there's a lot of trauma, adrenaline going on. Those hormonal centers may not be working the way they may be just kind of shut down and overwhelmed. So some gentle baby steps forward can help loosen that up.
The relationships are two-way, right? So, you may, like one of my first thoughts was, well, I'm doing all this stuff for my future self, right? Like, and great, he appreciates it. Look, rendezvous with that, clean underwear, and it's wonderful. And that's true, and that's part of the relationship. The other, about a week or so ago, I was done. It's 9:15. The kids, we were all fighting a cold, everything else. And I walked over and, I turned on the water to do the dishes, and I could feel my future self saying, listen, leave it for the morning. Let's get a good night's sleep. I'll take care of it. Now that is so different. And yet already in this conscious practice that I'm in, there's this sense that my future self is also handling things too. My past self made it possible for me to be here with all of you. We've been cultivating relationships, the kinship that Kathy and I have, the circle and the couple thousand sessions that we've done since that started. We create a container. These things are designed to spread and create some awareness for people to try across a wide spectrum of our world and where people are. We have people on the call that are working on the healing so that they're really more confident that they're surviving. And there are people that are kind of okay, but they'd really like to be thriving. And there are people that really have, their energy flowing and they're generously offering back into our community. I believe these real skills, if we apply them for ourselves, our me space, our own secure attachment, what does that mean for every child that we meet? Well, now we know what it feels like. We know when it's not there. We know where they're cultivating. We have a felt sense of what the gratitude cycle within ourselves feels like, and the gratitude cycle between us and a partner or a co-creator of all types, with people in our community that are doing things. They don't even have to be present. So like I walk a trail, the Mountain to Sea Trail. It's over 1,000 miles, and they're trail keepers. And today, when I was heading back up to my car, I was realizing, I'm not a trailblazer when it comes to a lot of things. I didn't create EFT, but I like once the trail is clearly attractive and it's like, oh yeah, this is where I want to go. And I was feeling this gratitude for the trail breakers and the trail makers and the trail tenders. And for me, like the gratitude to be someone who is aware of all the energetics that are happening that make our communities work, our circles work. So
I think one other point I really want to emphasize as we're kind of coming to the end of the call, human nature is we think everything will always be as hard as it is that first time. We always do. We want to plan and predict for the future. Our survival brain is trying to figure out how to allocate things. The first time we do something that's out of our normal, it is 10 times harder than the 10th time. It just, by nature, it is. Our bodies learn to adjust, our mind learns to adjust. I've been doing, because I hurt my knee when I was walking, I've been doing this workout on YouTube with chair seated cardio. And the first time we did it, I'm like, I suck at this. This is so bad. It's so hard. I'm all out of breath. Literally the third time I did it, I went through and I only made one small mistake. The first time I'm like, I should never do this one again. It's awful. It's too hard. It's like my brain was just spinning out of control. So whether it's like pausing Netflix to get the laundry done, sitting down to write something that you want to write, whatever it is, that every time you lift that flex that muscle a little bit, it gets stronger, and our systems are designed to get more efficient at things. So if you can remember, if you can remind your prefrontal cortex to remind you when you're doing something and you're like, this is too hard. Why did I ever start this? I'm not I have to do this for the rest of my life. Oh my God, it's not going to be this hard. It will get easier. And we don't often believe that, but if you can just have a little bit of a glimmer of that might get you through the first time and the second time. And then the third time you're like, why did I think this was so hard? So I just think it's a really important point that I repeat in a lot of calls because it's true, and our brains don't like to hold on to it very well. So if we can, it does get easier. And as we build this trust and this confidence, and we build the muscles, it's like, why was this ever hard? Now self-care is like part of my life. I really like that. I'm starting to feel comfortable and trust who I am and that I can take care of myself. That's a beautiful feeling there's a quiet confidence about that, not an adrenaline driven confidence, but like, oh, I can work with myself and I can work through my fears and my resistances and my old traumas in a way that I'm left living a life that naturally is what I want to live, where I feel really supported and cared for by myself, and I can allow others to support me too. So if you can, there is a beautiful side to this. We've been talking a lot about the traumas and the discomfort. We can retrain our brains. We can retrain our systems so that, and it's only going to take me a minute. Why don't I get that done rather than worrying about it for the next 10 hours? Mm-hmm. And then I will come back and do the thing I was enjoying doing. So I just want to emphasize that in hopes, if you can hear my voice, when you're thinking it's too hard, you can hear my voice saying, you just think it's always going to be this hard. It's not. It's going to get easier.
A real skill, a worthy one is from my heart to yours. Take the best, leave the rest. And thank you for being here.
Yes. Can you plug your ears for a minute, Rick?
No.
Oh, I wanted to ask them to help me with your birthday present.
Okay. Well,
there'll be an email coming out in another day or two, so watch out because it's a.
Are you gonna have? Okay.
Yeah, you will plug your ears, so I'm not going to say it now. Too bad.
Okay. All right.
But there'll be an email, so please watch for it.
If you want 420 in dog years.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all. Bless you. Bye for now.
Gentle baby steps forward, rock. You can do this.